All right, folks, I'm here with Glenn Aalderink. Glenn is leading a group of nurses in BC and I believe in Alberta as well. They've just started an alternative healthcare delivery model called Ezra Wellness. And he's been all over the news lately. I'm really interested as a fellow healthcare practitioner how he's doing this and also why he's doing it. So, Glenn, welcome to the show. Why don't you just start out with a little bit about your background and why you're doing this and what exactly it is you're doing.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Good morning. Why? Because the healthcare system's broken. Plain and simple, it's broken. Wait lists have been long for decades. Hospitals have been full. My hospital ran at 120% capacity before COVID, and that was a good day. That's the way it's been. Then COVID hit, and it just seemed like everything got turned on its ear. I remember sitting there 4 months in and having an orthopedic surgeon, I was a nurse on the surgical floor, talking to him, and he's going, I asked him how far behind everything was, and he said in that 4 months, he had dropped another full year behind. And that just blew me away. Like, he already said he was over a year behind to start with. So I'm thinking all these people that were needing knee replacement, that were waiting 2 years, I'm thinking that was quick. Now they're looking at 4 or 5 years potentially. It just blew me away. And then, like, always hearing the hospitals were full and they're overflowing with COVID. Well, my hospital was running 120% capacity before COVID, and that was a good day.
And Glenn, is the hospital running above capacity because there's so many unvaccinated people, would you say? Or
I don't know that particular. I haven't been in the hospital for a while. I've heard the reports, but I don't like to.
Are unvaccinated people more likely to need knee replacements or something like that?
You know what? The funny thing is, I look at most of the people who I know that have not gotten COVID, and those who have, the ones with a lower BMI or healthier lifestyle seem to be a lot more healthy and avoiding it.
Right.
Just a personal observation.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I only bring up that point because it seems like the unvaccinated are getting blamed for healthcare scarcity. You know, here in Alberta, I think we have something like 300 ICU beds. Meanwhile, in one of the poorest states in the U.S., Alabama, which has a similar size as Alberta, they have like 1,500 ICU beds, like 5 times as many in one of the poorest states. So you can't tell me that this is related to vaccine status. This, I'm like you. Healthcare has been scarce. We've been burning the candle at both ends, trying to meet demand, and that this is a systemic problem, and it's being stressed right now under the COVID regime. So, yeah.
You forgot about burning the candle at 3 places in the middle too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, anyways, I'm looking at this, and a lot of it is now like in Kamloops. I don't know about other locations, but here we have no walk-in clinics anymore. You have to wait 2 years minimum, pretty much, to see and get a family doctor in town. And this has been going on since I moved here a decade ago. Like the walk-in clinics disappearing have just been since COVID. But like even when I got here, I didn't have a family doctor originally for 3.5 years. So this has been a chronic problem. And then when COVID hit, we started getting that, you can have a telephone call with your doctor.
Right.
So you wait 3 weeks to have a telephone call, and then it's like wait 3 more days to get in, say you have a ear infection. He wants to actually take a look and make sure that it's infected and not just sore or whatever. It's like, so you're going almost 4 weeks before you can get any treatment on something that is, if they dealt with it right off the bat, very minor.
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking about this, and it's like, since this happened and the fact that they kicked out all us vaccinated or unvaccinated or unjabbed or injected nursing staff and doctors and healthcare, that there's a potential labor pool that has skills that could assist and facilitate people getting better, promoting their health quicker and better. and thus also alleviating the stress on the hospitals, which I see are going to be collapsing rather quickly. Because how can you, in the middle of a pandemic, that your hospitals are overflowing, decide that you don't need more nurses, that it's
Right.
okay to fire them?
Yeah.
So the pressure is just building on the hospitals. I'm hoping through Ezra that we can help alleviate some of that. You
Hmm.
know, you go hiking for the weekend, you fall in a rabbit hole and you wrench your knee a bit, that I can sit there and instead of you sitting in an emergency room or waiting 3 weeks to see a doctor, that I could sit there and say, you know what, we could do this rest, ice compression, and elevation.
Right.
And you know what, clear up that knee issue so that you're back on your feet within a week and back to regular activity, rather than if there is something more drastically wrong, that we could send you then to get the help that you need and kind of just help, like your word, triage a little bit before
Yeah.
somebody goes in.
Awesome. Well, I want to get into what you're doing with Ezra here in a second, but I want to focus in on this healthcare scarcity thing a little bit more and get a sense of what it's like on the ground there in BC. You know, in Alberta, it's difficult to get any numbers on how many staff have been off over the past year. I know that most healthcare workers I know, almost without exception, are looking for an exit strategy. None, whether you're vaccinated, unvaccinated, really want to be working in this system. It's just been a nightmare here in Alberta under the COVID regime, changing rules every week, getting dumped on and criticized for not wearing your PPE properly when you just saved a person's life and went the extra mile and, you know, are doing exceptional patient care. You know, it's like, it's not a fun place. They've stripped all the life. So, you know, I know in the Edmonton area where I'm at, we've had unconfirmed reports that up to a third of paramedics are off on stress leave. They'd rather go off on paid leave than face another day being demoralized on the front lines by bureaucrats. I'm hearing similar numbers in nurses, although it's you try to find any official numbers on this. It's almost it's all like they're not advertising this stuff. It doesn't make them look good. What's your sense there in BC? What have you faced similar staffing shortages over the past year because of this stuff?
I haven't been in the hospital due to a injury, personal injury on
Okay.
the job injury, but I still have many friends who will admit that they're friends and talk to me. And yeah, like a couple of weeks ago, Kamloops here had a 12 to 16-hour wait to get into the emergency room. We had a
Crazy.
woman pass away in the waiting room for the emergency clinic or emergency. Um, there was that one day there was the 16 up to 16-hour wait was 135% capacity with 65% staffing,
Hmm.
was what I was told by several friends that were still there. Um, I can't, like I said, we were short staffed before. Like there were days before COVID where we'd be running, I'd be almost 50% more patients. And that was like that. It wasn't very often, but it did happen enough that you knew that the system was not working.
Right.
And generally on the weekends and, you know, the prime times, evenings, you couldn't seem to find enough people, or weekends. And the system, it seemed to have been, in my mind, deliberately set up to fail.
Hmm. Right. Right.
And it's
Yeah.
like you
So
show staff, well, we'll throw $5 at the problem. That doesn't solve the fact that patient safety is compromised because, oh, well, we're down one nurse, but hey, I get $5 extra an hour. That's the union solution.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, so you've started this enterprise that is going to have the benefit of, you know, alleviating some of the pressure off the healthcare system. You're creating actual solutions here, unlike the government, who seems to be just creating more problems and making increasing healthcare scarcity, rather than the other way around. You know, they demoralize people at work, and then to fix the problem, rather than removing the demoralizing conditions, they mandate overtime and cancel vacation as if that's going to solve the problem of
Yeah,
demoralization. But
that'll help
you
with
know,
morale.
yeah, yeah. So look, at the start of this pandemic, when, you know, we didn't know what the threat was, I had been working on a project for about a year in my municipality, as a project manager trying to get a community paramedic program off the ground where we go into clients' homes and do bedside healthcare and coordinate with their primary care physician and, you know, draw blood and facilitate their prescriptions and do all these things. And we knew that, you know, there's a group of seniors out there right now under the pandemic who are scared and who ought to be have focus protection, and they're lacking mobility, and they can't even go to the doctor's office anyway. So this is a perfect opportunity. But and so I had this solution ready to go. I had been working on it for a year, but of course our health, it's impossible to get an enterprise like this off the ground given the regulatory environment we're in. I mean, you know, the government enjoys a monopoly on healthcare. So how the hell are you doing this? Like,
I'm doing this based upon what I see are ethical and moral imperatives.
mm,
Um, they can take away our license, which they're probably going to do fairly quickly, I imagine. Well, we've heard Adrian Dick say that he's going to throw the book at us. That's our Minister of Health.
geez.
And the fact that our colleges are totally ignoring nursing ethics and following these mandates just blows my mind. But they can't take away our skills. They can't take away our knowledge. We're using the same tools that you can get at Walmart.
Right.
It's like, so what am I doing? I'm just giving somebody this information that is presented to me with my experience and my knowledge to read it a little bit more in depth. And I'm going to do it in a moral way, in an ethical way. I'll still follow the same rules that I have as being I'm not going to diagnose. I'm not going to prescribe. That's a doctor's job. But I'm hoping that in this aspect, I can help get that person to seek the help that they need in a more constructive way. Like say I'm doing a wound care on a fellow, and he's got and I noticed that his lower legs are fairly dusky, and that his nails are just grody. I can look at that and say, hey, do you mind while I'm here that I check your blood glucometer, your blood glucose level? I find out he's at a 22.
Right.
I can have a discussion with him, plus get him lined up to the doctor and
Sure.
take care of, like, try and take care of that, but also work on getting him a healthier diet, maybe hooking him up to a personal trainer or somebody like that or physio to get him more active, to try and get his blood sugars under control naturally with that exercise and diet. Meanwhile, he can also deal with the doctor giving him the prescriptions that he needs.
Yeah.
And I really want Ezra to be all encompassing. I don't want to look at or disclude any modality from it. Nutritionists, herbalists, naturopaths, physio, massage, Reiki, energy healers, all of it. If it's going to be beneficial, counselors, like all that, bring it all to the table. Let's sit down, have that discussion between me or one of us helpers, which, by the way, Ezra is Hebrew for helpers.
Right.
That one of our helpers, that we sit down and we actually have that discussion, find out what's best for you and what will work for you, rather than just, oh, well, here's a pill, go away.
Right.
And yes, you know what? It will be private. You'll have to pay for that. It will not be funded by the government.
Yeah.
But it's been shown time and time again, you put a little money and you invest some money into something, you're more likely to buy in and follow through with the commitment.
Yeah.
So kind of, I'm hoping that we can play on all that to bring them together to get them on the path of wellness.
That's awesome. You know, and I love what you're saying because, you know, there's what we do in emergency medical services, which is basically sick care, right? It's like you've experienced a catastrophic event and now someone has to pick up the pieces and help you get back on track. But there's a lot of stuff you can do. Like, you know, 95% of healthcare is your own life choices and getting a handle on owning this meat carcass you're driving around, right? And optimizing health and finding not just ways to be disease free, but ways to actually flourish as a human. You know, like I always say, you know, deadlifting and doing squats makes me a better human being, right? It gives me more choices in life. It means I can do more things with my body, and I'm a healthier person. It's not that I was sick before I went into the gym, but
Yeah.
After I came to the gym, I'm a stronger person. So there are things you can do to improve your health, even if you're not sick, and I love what you're saying about, helping people navigate even the health system. Like you come in and you have this issue and like you're going to have to wait 12 hours in Emerge, or you're going to have to wait 2 weeks or more to see your family doctor. And you just need a little bit of advice from someone who knows something about what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
Do I go to Emerge? Should I go to Emerge right now? Or can this wait till next week and I can talk to a doctor? And what should I talk to the doctor about? And what seems to be going on with me? So you can really help provide that information is huge when it comes to healthcare. And so, I mean, really you can, information is probably 90% or more of what healthcare really ought to be.
Yeah.
And you're able to do all that, of course, without license or anything else, right?
So now imagine that at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So that's the other part, is I want this to be on call.
Sure.
You have that need, you know what, give us a call. We'll send somebody to you to start that conversation.
Awesome. And I would love these clinics just from a selfish paramedic standpoint of being the guy on the other end of 911. The amount of things, of non-acute things that we get called for because people just don't know the answer. They're like, I've got some belly pain. Could be a stuck fart, could be a GI bleed, could be like anything in between, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what should I do about it? And of course they call the local health line and they say, call 911. And then we go and pick up and sit with this stuck fart for the next 6 hours at the hospital, taking us out of service and making us roll our eyes and be like, why are we being abused in this way? Right. Well, but at the same time, that person genuinely doesn't know what's going on. They have a genuine concern and it's a legitimate one. And your kind of clinic offers them the best option for that and would alleviate the stress off the public system that I'm in, and free up an ambulance to deal with actual emergencies. Right.
Yeah.
So, I love with that. And, this is where healthcare is going as well. It's like, again, community paramedicine is this idea that, okay, we have a COPD patient who has low mobility, can't get to their doctor, develops a cough. Okay. And we know that in a week, that cough could develop into a life-threatening pneumonia given the comorbidities that this patient has. They need to have that needs to be caught and they need to be plugged into the healthcare system. Now, I'm not going to prescribe them a drug, but I'm going to recognize that they have a serious problem here and that we need to figure out how to plug them in with a primary care physician to get the prescription they need. And that intervention is hugely valuable. That's the difference between spending $50,000 putting this patient on ventilators in the ICU or getting a 10-cent pill that's going to fix their problem and prevent them from clogging up the public health system.
That's what I see. Once some rationale or logic does enter back into the conversation, having that ability for me to phone a doctor, the doctor is able to charge that 15-minute call, but in 5 minutes, I can give them all the patient's pertinent information, and the patient gives consent, prescription sent to the closest pharmacy. You know what? Even worst case scenario, I'll pick it up and I'll make sure they know how to take it properly.
Right.
And then there's also, how about our elderly, those ones that need the home care, but they either don't want the jab themselves or they don't want to, or they want to see family who refuse to get the jab.
Right.
Well, you know what? Ezra also is going to have where we'll take care of them in their home. We'll be the one to sit there and make sure that they're fed, they're clean, their activity levels are appropriate, and that they're protected. And then guess what? They can have Thanksgiving dinner with the family and not have to worry about doing it by Zoom or by FaceTime or whatever. It's like they can actually have that conversation. They can get hugged by their loved ones.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, this is awesome. I mean, you're really inspiring what you're doing here, Glenn. You guys are obviously going to be under the gun here. The government wants to maintain its monopoly. They want to maintain healthcare scarcity, it seems. I mean, here you are offering a more abundance in terms of healthcare resources. And I suspect you're facing all sorts of challenges. You alluded to some of them, your college, the health minister himself. They seem really intent on driving up the long lines. It reminds me of, the bread lines in the Soviet Union or whatever. You got to wait hours to get a stale product kind of thing. And that's kind of what our healthcare system has become.
And take a wheelbarrow of money with you.
Right. Yeah. And so, how can people help you, and what kind of obstacles do you face?
Personally, here right now, we did get removed from our first office. And it was just a miscommunication, really. But we're in the search for one now. So anybody knows a place in Kamloops that would fit this kind of idea, please let me know. The other one is we do accept donations, because obviously this is going to be something that's, even though we're getting our equipment from Walmart, it's not cheap.
Right.
Yeah, we accept donations through Ezra Kamloops at gmail.com. We also have a Facebook page, Ezra Wellness Kamloops. Feel free to join that and become part of the conversation in there. And you know what?
Awesome. And by the way, audience, I'll put those links in the description below, so they'll be right there for you.
Thanks. It's the big one is you know what? When you see something like this, there are the naysayers or the government supporters. Don't stay silent. You know what?
Right.
Express your beliefs. If you believe this is worth it, help defend this idea. Because all this is we're trying to build community again. And those people that are detracting from us are trying to tear it apart.
Right.
Ezra's will be non-discriminatory in any way.
Right. Yeah, and like you said, Glenn, you're not doing anything invasive here. All you're doing is basically providing information, which is super valuable. And, maybe with home care, you're doing stuff that a family member would do, like nail care and just basic hygiene stuff, and making sure they understand when to take their medications and all that kind of stuff. So you're not doing anything that requires, is risky in any way. In fact, it's hugely beneficial. So extremely low risk, extremely high benefit. I don't see how anyone could be against this. And yeah, I will echo your statement there about don't remain silent. The silence is what's giving these authoritarians permission. And I understand why people are silent. They're worried about cancel culture, but there's a growing groundswell here of people that are starting to speak out. You're safe to speak out. There's a lot of us who have gone first and who have taken the brunt of this, and we are seeing a huge cultural shift. So it's safe to stand up for freedom and defend these things, and it's hugely important because it's these voices of cancel culture and demonization that are really destroying society, because we're giving them some credibility that they don't deserve. And so your voice can really help this out. So I would definitely echo that. Glenn, anything else to add?
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. Anything else to add at all, Glenn? Or
no, actually, that's it. Just thank you very, very much. Reach out to us. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if there's an Ezra starting up somewhere near everybody. And I'm more than willing to help connect them to that.
Very good. Well, I'm very curious, and if there's one on the horizon anywhere near Edmonton, definitely let me know, and I'd love to touch base and see if there's any way I can help out, or even be part of it. So, yeah, huge kudos to you, and thanks for what you're doing. And it's great to see actual solutions and not just people pushing back. We need the pushback, but we also need solutions. And you're providing actual on the ground solutions that are super valuable. So thanks so much, Glenn. And again, you send me those links. I'll put them in the description below so our audience can find them. So thanks again, Glenn. Appreciate it.
Have a great day.